and welcome to the LMI podcast. Today we continue with our series thinking about contemporary issues and mission. Previously, we've looked briefly at globalization and urbanization, and now today we're focusing upon migration. So what do we mean when we speak of migration? Well, we're thinking about the movement of people from one place to another with the intention to settle either temporarily or permanently in a new place. Now, most of the time when we think about migration, our minds are drawn to the global movement of people, the crossing of international borders. But migration can also occur within the boundaries of a particular nation. For example, people relocating from rural regions to live in urban centres within the same nation can also be thought of as migration. Now that said, for this episode, we're going to focus our attention upon international migration. A UN publication released this month reports that there are 258 million international migrants in the world today. That is 258 million people now living outside the borders of their original home nations. That figure represents a huge increase of 49% since the reported figure of the year 2000. 258 million is just about 3.5% of the world's total population. The same report notes that the majority of international migrants come from India, Mexico, Russia, China, Bangladesh, the Syrian Arab Republic and Pakistan.
Passenger Abu Dharam Hezi, passenger Abu Dharam Hezi joining Bangkok Airways flight DG96.
Now, when we consider the actual movement of peoples in migration, there may be a number of factors at work that have prompted individuals or families to make the life-changing decision to migrate. These are sometimes thought of as push and pull factors. For example, push factors might include displacement or refugee status caused by conflict. They may be linked to natural disasters, various forms of persecution, or poor living conditions that lack or deny basic needs and rights. These things may push people out of their home nations and into migration. Pull factors could include better economic opportunities or career prospects, personal preferences regarding culture or climate, lower crime rates elsewhere, or perceptions of greater stability in another country. One or several of these factors may pull or attract people into migration. Now, we don't want this phenomenon to be a matter of faceless statistics. We want to remember that we're talking about people. So we may ask, how are people affected by migration? Now, the answer to this question will, of course, depend upon the specific situations facing each individual or family. A migrant fleeing war in their home country to find refuge elsewhere will certainly experience something very different to that of a migrant who has chosen to relocate to pursue career opportunities. Now, whilst both people will have some similar experiences and feelings associated with an international move, they will, of course, also be impacted in vastly different ways according to the push or pull factors at work in each case. Migration also affects more than just the international migrant. The movement of peoples also impacts individuals in receiving nations, which at times leads to associated social and political change. Now, for the remainder of this episode, we want to consider how international migration impacts the task of being on mission for Jesus today. Firstly, we need to recognise there are challenges and opportunities for mission due to migration. As mentioned, international migration can lead to significant social change in the receiving society. The movement of peoples often brings new cultural tastes, practices and beliefs into a town or area, and it can be quite a challenge to meaningfully engage people with the gospel who have vastly different worldviews from our own. Believers in nations who receive international migrants may well need to enter into a process of education to learn more about the beliefs, values and practices of the new arrivals to the community. This is why it's important to remember that migration is about people. Taking the time to understand people's stories and their backgrounds is so important, and it makes the challenge of missional engagement easier. Getting to know migrants, displaying understanding and willingness to learn about them will help to build authentic relationships, which in turn can lead to sharing about Christ. Whilst it may be challenging to consider a different worldview, we must see that international migration brings with it significant opportunities for the gospel. At times, this can mean Christians have the chance to reach the unreached. As many Hindus, Muslims, Buddhists, atheists and so on come from nations where there's perhaps little or no Christian witness, there's a great opportunity for the people of God to participate in the mission of God by sharing the gospel with those who've never heard, all without leaving your home nation. Of course, international migration is not only the introduction of new beliefs into a new location, in the way that we've just been describing. In fact, Christians make up a significant percentage of migrant peoples. The movement of Christ's people through international migration may well lead to the renewing of his church in a receiving nation, or the opportunity for local Christians to mobilize migrant believers for mission in their new surroundings or indeed in their homeland. Our understanding of mission must keep in step with these kind of developments. The traditional concept of missionary activity taking place through the sending of missionaries to certain locations must be expanded to take into consideration the opportunities that arrive in the shape of the people who migrate internationally. One example of contemporary thinking and response to migration is the rise in diaspora missiology. This refers to intentional missionary engagement among specific ethnic groups who have left their home nations and now reside somewhere else. We'll say a little more about diaspora ministry on a future podcast episode, so do look out for that. In the meantime, for more information about Logos Ministries International, our work among different peoples from different nations around the world, please do visit us online at www.lmi-org.net. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram using the handle LMI_connect, or find us on Facebook by searching for Logos Min International. Thank you for listening, and do join us next time on the LMI podcast.